Congratulations, the USFL has made it through an entire regular season of spring football, something the XFL and the AAF could not do. Now, the XFL, of course, had to fold because of COVID, but let's not take away from this magnificent accomplishment by the USFL.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna him up every play. I told you I'm gonna hit his ass.
The USFL playoffs start this weekend, and I realize I haven't made a USFL video since week 4, but today I want to talk about why the USFL made it. One key reason the USFL is doing well is because they are willing to listen to their audience, unlike the almighty NFL who blatantly ignores their fans who hate shit like the taunting rule emphasis or excessive flagging of lightly touching QBs or, punishing John Gruden more severely than Dan Snyder. The USFL listens, and I want to credit them for hearing the fans and implementing an idea NFL fans have been begging for, yearning for years, which is having the 2 worst teams play for the #1 overall pick in the draft. Fans want that instead of the Pro Bowl game. Now, this happened by accident in the USFL. It just so happened that the lowly Panthers were playing the lowly Maulers week 10, the final week of the season. But I applaud the USFL for seeing a cool opportunity, adapting, and making a meaningless game meaningful.
We got an unusual situation in our final week of the regular season in the USFL. The 1-8 Michigan Panthers are playing the 1-8 Pittsburgh Maulers. Now, under normal circumstances, the loser of this game would be awarded the first draft pick in the upcoming draft. But we're going to change the rules right here. So, this weekend, whoever wins the game actually gets not only the first pick overall in our 2023 draft, but the first pick in every round.
Now, the Michigan Panthers, who had the first overall pick in the inaugural draft, will begin season 2 in the same spot after they eviscerated the Pittsburgh Maulers 33-21, officially making the Maulers the chicken salad of the USFL.
We like pizza!
Although I do have to admit, seeing a pitiful loser get slapped around by another pitiful loser only to determine the unequivocal biggest loser and then punish the biggest loser of the 2 losers is quite sad. It reminds me of one of my favorite videos. 2 nerds get into fist fight over Mario Party.
You shit! Alright, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry.
You're fucking sorry?
Sorry,
What the fuck?
The real question is whether the USFL will find a way to make this happen again next year. The 2 worst teams playing for the #1 pick, or if this is a rule they will simply use when the stars align. Not the playoff-bound Philly Stars, but the constellation for the most defeated teams. Ursa Oculus, which is Latin for barely watchable. Quarterback Shea Patterson, who was drafted first overall by the Michigan Panthers, didn't even last a full season with the team, and after getting released at the end of May, is now the backup in New Orleans to Kyle Sloter. Patterson's departure opened up the blank pages for Paxton Lynch to write his redemption story. In his final game, Lynch threw 3 touchdowns for 275, going 22 of 30, giving his team the absolute best opportunity to replace him next season. Oh man, he just can't catch a break. That's right, the worst quarterback every year has a chance to put his team in a position to replace him. We may have found a flaw in this 2 worst teams thing. Now this leads me to the USFL social media strategy, another reason I think it's doing well. You have to have a strong social presence to grow your audience. In less than a year, the USFL amassed 120,000 Twitter followers. They were great about posting not just highlights from games, but all the meme-ready funny shit from the games as well.
I lost one. Well, it's just a wisdom tooth though. That's what you were talking about today? Right now, yeah, on the hit. Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm fine. Boo! Boo boo! Oh, fuck, I forgot to get sunscreen.
Let's go, Panther! Mauler! Let's go, Panther! Mauler!
And although it's not for me, because as an adult man, I'd never actually care about what name team mascot has, I thought it was smart for the USFL to engage with possible fans by letting them name the mascots for every team, which is how the Stars ended up with Blob. Quite possibly the best named mascot in pro football. More importantly, a never-ending supply of sex was provided, and by sex I mean photos of Jeff Fisher. Outside of that distraction of a man, the USFL was incredibly easy to keep up with via their Twitter account alone, and in my eyes, that's a huge win. Don't forget I sell legal drugs, coffee. This is my coffee company, Benchwarmer Brew, benchwarmerbrew.com. All month long, to celebrate 10 years of this dumbass channel, we're giving you 10% off with the code BIGDICKDECADE. You can also sign up for the subscription service, which is a 25% discount. Tack on the Big Dick Decade code, that's 35% off. I'm basically making no money if you do those two things. I know business. And I've got Big Dick Patreon shout-outs for new patrons. Kirk Sucks 08, Jay Dizzle, Evan Howell, and Teddy Loons. All $10 patrons have access to our monthly Zoom meeting. That also includes all $10 YouTube members. Patreon.com/thatsgoodsports. Thank you guys for the support. I would be dead without you. And my heart medication. But mostly you. Then we've got television ratings. Another reason the USFL didn't fail. It's easy to laugh at the empty stadium seats hosting USFL games. Look at all those no people. And then to assume this league will die very soon because of the poor in-game attendance. However, the USFL TV ratings were actually pretty good. The inaugural weekend of the USFL crushed with the NBC/Fox co-airing of the Stallions Generals game at nearly 2.95 million. By comparison, that's higher than the number of people who tuned into the NHL Conference Finals on average, and the NHL had a big uptick in viewership for this series. Now, the NHL average during the playoffs was up 58% from last year, averaging about 768,000 viewers per game. That's right around the numbers the USFL pulled Week 9 on NBC and Fox. Just like with the NHL, the USFL got good ratings when the games were aired on easily accessible channels like NBC and Fox versus when they aired on USA and FS1. NHL ratings were also up because the games were on ESPN and TNT instead of NBC, SN, USA, and CNBC. If you put sports on channels that very few people watch, very few people will watch those sports. It's pretty simple. Now, the USFL ratings did decrease significantly through the course of the season, but this league can survive if the right TV deals are put into place. I think the ratings for the first playoff games will be incredibly important for the USFL and its long-term viability. Fortunately, those games between the Philly Stars and the New Jersey Generals will air on Fox, and the Breakers Stallions game will be on NBC. Keep giving the USFL those prime stations, and they will build a reliable audience. Another thing to note, if the Colorado Avalanche sweep or close out the Lightning in 5, the USFL will have carte blanche for its first playoff series on Sunday. If not, the Breakers and Stallions will be going head-to-head for Game 6. TV is where these leagues make most of their money, but they do need a plan to get people to the games and have the teams play in their home cities. The one location in Birmingham was a great cost-saving move for season 1, but the XFL had some great fan bases in St. Louis, Texas, and DC. I need to see that in phase 2 of the USFL to really believe this league can survive. I'd also like to see all of the games played on Sunday versus a Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule. My idea would be 3 afternoon games aired with the red zone type option and a feature primetime game on Sunday evening. Now, the most important reason the USFL did not fail, gameplay. Like the XFL, the USFL is putting out a good football product. Americans will watch good football anytime, whenever. Just give us some good fucking football. Considering we have yet to see any of these leagues play in full back-to-back seasons, let alone a full season, I have to assume the product will only get better as players and coaches find more familiarity with each other, with the team, with the process, and the league in general. The XFL, again, is returning, but it's going to look very different now that The Rock is running it, which, considering Vince McMahon's situation, is definitely a good thing. The USFL has the advantage heading into season 2, even though I think the XFL has far more star power with the head coaches they landed for their third reboot. My point, the player pool for the USFL will be better based on the fact that they survived this season and will have returning players. And based on the fact that they did some possibly shady shit in the player contracts to ensure they can't go to the XFL. Now, when I say the gameplay is good in the USFL, there is one major caveat, and that is the quarterbacks. The NFL QB play simply cannot be matched. But once you accept that it's not going to be matched, the football's pretty good. And don't get me wrong, I love guys like Kyle Sloter, Case Cookus, and Jordan Te'amu, all guys who got looks in the NFL, all guys who, along with Luis Perez and Jamar Smith, are the top QBs in the USFL, but there is a reason they aren't on NFL rosters right now. Sloter didn't play in the final week of the season, but he and Te'amu were the passing leaders in yards. But if you look at their touchdown to interception ratio, it would make even Nathan Peterman sick. Had Case Cookus been given the reins to the Stars offense earlier, he probably would lead the league in all passing categories. His 5-touchdown day against the Panthers was the greatest single day of production in the new USFL. Cookus threw 4 touchdowns, rushed for a touchdown, and had over 100 rushing yards in that game. Those types of dominant performances, assuming every game isn't lopsided, provide a great football viewing experience. And that game was a 3-point game in the third quarter. So yeah, it was pretty good football in my very humble opinion. Spring League journeyman Luis Perez posted the best TD to interception ratio at 9-1 on the season, in addition to a Drew Brees-like completion percentage of 72 if you round up. Hell, he threw 3 touchdowns last week alone, but Perez split reps with quarterback DeAndre Johnson almost all season long. A strange tactic that you could only do in the USFL, and it helped get the Generals to a first-place finish in the North. A tactic I said was stupid week 2, but now I kind of love it. The double-edged sword, though, for any spring league will always be that their best players are probably going to leave for the NFL. PJ Walker is a great example of that. The good news is, that's what you ultimately want for these guys. And there will always be a player pool to replace production. There are players from this USFL season, corners like Will Likely and Channing Stribling, who are going to get another chance to play in the NFL. Stribling finished the season with an impressive 7 interceptions. Likely had 2 forced fumbles to go along with his 4 picks. The Gamblers' edge rusher, Chris Odom, amassed 12.5 sacks by season's end and 6 forced fumbles. His teammate, linebacker Donald Payne, had 117 tackles in 10 games. That's 32 more than any other player, plus 3 interceptions. Now, Payne was a pretty good special teams player in the NFL for the Jaguars. He's a great example of a guy who probably needed to put out some new tape after Jacksonville murdered his NFL dreams via the USFL to get one last chance in the big league. Really, every season, there have to be a handful of players that showcase the kind of talent that is fitting for the NFL, and the USFL accomplished that in season 1. And the final thing to watch to see if the USFL can survive are the ratings for the playoff games this weekend and the championship game. Their 2.95 million viewed game, again, was broadcast on Fox and NBC. These games will be on Fox or NBC, so if they can get around 2 million, maybe over 2 million viewers for each of those games, that will be a huge win for the long-term viability of the USFL. And just maybe, it can become a mainstay in the spring, like allergies. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please come back. Gonna have a quarterback power rankings episode this week. And if some juicy stuff starts to happen, of course, NFL news. And if you're bored, check out the next video, which is on the screen right now. Click it. YouTube says you will like it.